What is up, everyone? Welcome to Optimus Fantasy. I am here with my new co-host, the one and only Mike Reedy. Guys, we're going to be with you every single Tuesday, all season long, right around that 4 p.m. Eastern. Obviously, we're going to have technical difficulties. This is live entertainment. We're going to be here with all of the best waiver ads for you guys to get onto your rosters so you can keep winning those fantasy football leagues. Mike, this is our first show together. It is great to be here. How are you doing over there in New England, my friend?
Good, good. I actually turned off my light because my hair is so white it looked like I didn't have any more with the backdrop on my light on. Nate, super happy to get to do this with you. For those of you watching, listening, we've been trying to collaborate on something for a few years now, so it's great to get to work with Nate. Super stoked about it, man. Super stoked about it.
Yeah, Mike, we've been trying to make this happen for a while. So I'm really glad to be here. Glad we're going to be here all season. We're also going to be covering waiver wire, the occasional mailbag show here, and we'll get to what that in-season schedule is going to look like. But first, very important here, guys, we are doing a giveaway. If you have not heard of Pros with Joes, we are pairing with them this season to bring you a very fun charity tournament. There are a ton of amazing analysts that include people like Joe Bryant, Stefania Bell, Howard Bender. You've got myself in there. Sign up, donate to that analyst charity for an opportunity to get to co-manage a team with them and win some awesome prizes at the end of the season. Now, if you go register for Pros with Joes, make sure you are subscribed to the Optimus YouTube channel. Now send a screenshot of that over to either our Twitter channel or team@optimusfantasy.com, and you will be registered to win a deluxe edition of College Football 25 on EA Sports. It just came out. Mike, I'm not really a video game guy. Have you played any of the College Football 25 yet?
I haven't. I stopped playing video games because they sucked up too much of my time. So I stopped.
I mean, yeah, I'm going to out myself here, I guess. The newest video game console I own is a Wii that I bought 16 years ago as a wedding present to my wife and myself. Before that, I have two PlayStation 2s. So if that's about where I get in video games, but that shouldn't stop you guys from registering. So again, make sure proswithjoes.com, just register. Doesn't mean you have to necessarily donate. Send us those screenshots. You'll be registered. We're going to give that away next week on this show live with me and Mike Reedy, and I'm very excited about it. Now, Mike, we're getting into the fantasy football season. We're 2.5 weeks away from getting actual fantasy football action, meaningful games. There's a lot to talk about. A lot of people are rolling through their drafts right now. So while we're normally a waiver wire show, today we're going to get into some ADP values, players we're seeing fall down draft boards, and we are going to be referencing Fantasy Pros ADP. It's a consensus ADP across a number of platforms. This is going to give you an idea of where these players are falling in drafts, and we're going to tell you why we think their values. Mike, what are you, when you're looking for these values at ADP, what are you looking for? Is there a specific characteristic, a specific kind of area within the draft that they're landing?
Path to production, right? Like is something I like to talk about regarding these things. Players that look like they have a path to touches, targets, touches. What we see in the preseason, people often say, like, who's the next Puka Nakua? Well, Puka became Puka last season because Cooper Kupp got dinged up in the preseason, and that opened up a lot of targets for Puka. He took advantage. Who is that, right? And who is on a team where players left and is now the number one wide receiver or the clear-cut backup running back, who's just been appointed the starting quarterback position, say on a team we were mentioning earlier that we'll talk about soon too. Players like that, right, where they get that path to playing time. It might not be immediate. It might be something that happens weeks from now, but guys that have a path to actually producing for you. A lot of times people are super hyped and stoked up about some rookie, but he's like the seventh option on the offense on the team he went to. He doesn't have a path to production this season.
I feel like you're taking a dig at Isaiah Spiller from a couple of years ago, Mike, because a large part of the community was excited about him. I was never on that train. I didn't like his film out of Texas A&M. I didn't think he really fit in that offense. And at this point, he's not someone we're going to be mentioning, minus maybe like 3 or 4 injuries in that Chargers backfield this offseason. But let's get into some players we are going to talk about, Mike. We're going to start with quarterbacks here. Now, this is a position where you're not looking for a backup with a path. You're looking for guys who are likely going to start. And we've got 4 guys here, and I am intrigued by the bottom 2 especially. Now, situation changed. We've got new news, but let's first talk about the first one on the list here, Deshaun Watson. He right now is going as the overall QB 22 in drafts in PPR. Now, Mike, I'm a little leery of Deshaun Watson. I know that that's a massive discount for a guy who we've seen has the potential to be a QB1. Do you see that potential this year? Like, in all reality, is there a path to that for him?
So I don't personally like him. So, I think I'm with the rest of the world. We kind of hope he fails in some ways because of some of the things he's done off the field. But his ADP is 159, right? So he's on average the 159th player chosen. So if you're going to take a risk somewhere at quarterback, or you drafted a quarterback early that you're unsure of, or you want to take multiple quarterbacks late, I'm okay with picking him. He played 5 games last year. He had 3 with 19 or more fantasy points. And one of the other 2, he had 16. So he can produce, right? At least steady. 8 total TDs, 4 interceptions in those games. He has Amari Cooper, who I like a lot. He's not rostered over 50% anywhere right now. So, like, he is getting drafted, but he's not heavily rostered anywhere. I took a flyer on him late, is what I'm saying. And in a 2 QB league, I wouldn't be afraid to take him as my 3rd quarterback anywhere, because you can. I mean, it's that easy.
Yeah, and that is a fair point. I mean, you're going to find that he's falling to be that 3rd quarterback in 2 quarterback leagues. What I will say, and I'm with you, Mike, I don't care for Deshaun Watson. That aside, if you look at some of his performances early on last season before he got dinged up against Tennessee, 22 fantasy points, 12 fantasy points, and then 24 fantasy points while getting dinged up in Tennessee, kind of fell off. Then he came back before he was out for the season. He had 22.9 and 18.2 fantasy points. So if he can put it together, I think that Deshaun Watson is a guy who could shock some people with his fantasy value at the end of the day, or where he finishes. Now, that is going to rely on him staying healthy. Now, another player that we're going to talk about, let's go ahead and move on to Baker Mayfield. Less controversy around this guy. I think most of us are just happy to see him succeed, Mike.
I am. I was super happy to see it, right? He may have been a little arrogant, a little cocky, but he pretty much got run out of town in Cleveland. He bounced around a little bit. He redeemed himself with the Rams, but he finished as the overall QB 10 last year, right? He's not getting drafted that way this year. He had 28 touchdowns, 10 interceptions, and 4,044 yards. Right, he's got some really good wide receivers in Godwin and Evans. I know the coaching staff has changed some, and that's going to impact play calling, right? But his ADP is 156 right now, consensus average draft position, after his best fantasy season ever. I'm just really surprised by that. I would definitely take Baker. I would take him before I would take Deshaun Watson, by the way. If you're going late round quarterbacks again and you want to pick 2 to play safe, I think Baker's a great guy to pick there. He's proven he can do this with this team, and he can do it again.
Well, and not only, Mike, you said he's proven he can do it with this team, but he did it with a pretty dinged up Chris Godwin last season.
Yeah.
Godwin's going to be healthy. Another year with, you may or may not like him, tight end's kind of a cesspool here. Cade Otton, Mike Evans doesn't really look like he's lost a step. And in this offensive scheme, he can lose a step and still produce 1,000-yard season. Rachaad White, but then you add Bucky Irving to the mix, who we're going to talk about here in a little bit. I think Baker Mayfield is lined up to outdo his 2023 season. Now, that relies on Chris Godwin staying healthy, obviously him gelling with Canales and crew, the new head coaching regime there. But I can see Baker Mayfield finishing 10 or better if he has another season like he had last season.
And I think he can. Um, Evans isn't slowing down. Godwin's back in the slot. I like White, the running back, a lot as well. Even if they're a little more conservative, he could easily, we're looking at a top 15 guy that you're getting for free at the end of a draft.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Now, the last two guys we're going to talk about here, Bo Nix in Denver has been getting a lot of hype after these first couple of preseason games. And the media in Denver has been very clear. Bo Nix has won this starting job. Not only has he won it, but he's emphatically won it. And people are excited about what he can do in this offense. Mike, right now he's going QB, I believe it's in the late 20s. He's going to outperform that, right? I mean,
quarterback's so deep this year, right? So, I mean, I think he looks great. He's with a coach who's going to use the quarterback in the pass more than people probably believe because of Russell Wilson last year, but they were efficient with the pass, by the way, last year. Russell Wilson wasn't that bad in Denver. Bo Nix looks like he might be better than Russell Wilson was last year. It'll be interesting to see how this plays out. I'm kind of excited about it because he's there. Sutton's still there, who was super efficient with touchdowns last year. I know we'll talk about Jaleel McLaughlin later on. Great pass catching running back as well. I think they're setting him up for success, and everybody's talking about a couple of other rookie quarterbacks. Nobody's really talking about Bo Nix, but he's set up to do well this season. He's only 12% rostered in Yahoo right now, by the way. It's so hardly anybody's drafting him. He's available. And if you don't feel like drafting him, you might want to flag him after the first week or two and see how he's doing and add him on the waivers.
Yeah, well, so right now he's going as QB 23. I was off by just a smidgen. Now, to your Russell Wilson point, he finished as QB 16 last year in Denver, which if you listen to the media, you would have thought he was QB like 28, somewhere around there. Much better showing. Now, in one QB leagues, I'm not excited about Bo Nix. You're not excited about Bo Nix. No one should really be excited about Bo Nix in a one QB league. However, in Superflex, he could creep into that QB2 territory, and where he's going QB 23 at the back end of that, he finishes QB 16 like Russell Wilson did last season or higher. I mean, that is a steal at a position that, I mean, in most fantasy leagues, pretty pivotal.
Oh, especially if you're playing Superflex, right? Or 2 QB league. That's and the value there is off the charts, just outright off the charts.
Now, the last quarterback we're going to talk about, Sam Darnold in Minnesota. Now, this is an interesting situation because for some reason, Mike, and maybe you can shed some light on this for me, a lot of people are dinging Justin Jefferson now with the news that J.J. McCarthy is out in redraft. And you're laughing because I'm laughing too. I don't understand. We knew Sam Darnold was going to start the season.
Well, I'm laughing because if anything, Jefferson, and if Addison plays and doesn't get a suspension or anything, I mean, you're talking about a team with some really good offensive weapons in those skill positions. And I think Darnold's going to be fine. He actually played really well when he was in Carolina until he hurt his shoulder. And I say that because I was using him in DFS weekly as a super cheap quarterback play, and he was helping me win a lot of money. And people were like, Donald, what are you, crazy? And I'm like, dude, 20 points again for like free 20 points again.
Okay.
And then he got hurt, and he played hurt for about 3 weeks before they shut him down, and people trashed him again, but they didn't understand he was hurt. He'll be better than expected there. I think Justin Jefferson's quarterback proof. That's my opinion.
Oh, Justin Jefferson is absolutely quarterback proof. That's why I chuckled when people were downgrading him. I was of the belief that Darnold was going to have this job all year. There's no reason to rush McCarthy in. This isn't a team that's ready to compete for a Super Bowl. So why bother rushing your young guy in? We saw what he was able to do in Michigan. He got 3 seasons to kind of, learn the offense, piddle around in it, figure things out, get snaps here and there. And while it's a bummer McCarthy's not going to get those probably like 50 to 60 snaps he may have gotten, In the long term, his health is better off. And
Yes.
Darnold, to your point, his first 4 games of 2022, 20, 22, 23, and 37 PPR points.
Yep.
He had that massive game against Dallas where he had the 4 total touchdowns. Mike, he was really good when he had weapons. He had DJ Moore healthy.
Yes.
He had Christian McCaffrey healthy. He had Hayden Hurst healthy. All 3 of those guys got dinged up around the same time. McCaffrey done for the season. DJ Moore hurt. Hayden Hurst hurt. Those guys were not 100%. And then Darnold gets hurt.
Darnold hurt his throwing shoulder. So, yep. I mean, when he got hurt on my old podcast, Cheat Sheet, we were talking about this because we were playing him and I was writing about him in Moneymakers and Heartbreakers. And, the second week he played horrible. I was like, he's hurt. I watched this game. He's just... he's got to be hurt. And sure enough, a few weeks later, they were just trying to play him through it because they had nobody behind him, and he was hurt. And I'm not saying he's going to light the world on fire, right?
Right, of course.
He's going to be usable, again, especially in like a 2 QB league. You'll probably see me recommend to play him in DFS. It is because the weapons are so good. Justin Jefferson, if anything, if we say he's a top 5 wide receiver, we're probably underselling how good he really is. I mean,
he's a top 2.
Yeah.
And you can't really question that. I don't know who's going to pass him unless Marvin Harrison Jr. or Malik Neighbors have an absolute just out of this world rookie season, which I don't think either one of them are in a position where that's going to happen.
The yardage totals to start last season before Jefferson got dinged up, was it 150 yards every single week? I mean, he's going to be highly utilized. I certainly would not be afraid to draft Justin Jefferson. I'm happy to see him slide. That way I can get him later on in a late round 1 or early round 2 pick. But I think Darnold will be fine there with him as well. Again, if you're going to draft him, it's a late round flyer.
Exactly. QB 31 right now. So it's a safe risk, in my opinion, to take Darnold that late. Right? Super safe, right? He's
all the guys we're talking about today are super safe, right? They're all guys that they don't pan out. You're just going to cut them anyways. So
I feel like we're going to be talking about Darnold week 1. I feel like our week 1, week 2 waiver shows, Darnold's going to be someone that we're chatting about like, hey, guys, we tried to tell you.
Everyone I have on the list I sent you were guys I feel like that within the first 3 weeks are going to pop up on the list.
All right, well, let's move on to running backs here, Mike. This is a really interesting list. A couple of guys on here I'm not surprised to see. One guy that I am absolutely in love with, but we're going to start with, we already referenced him, Jaleel McLaughlin out of Denver. Into his second year, we've heard a lot of hype for this kid in camp, and as good as Javonte Williams has been, it sounds like McLaughlin's going to be the 1B in Denver.
Yeah, I was going to start talking about him with the rumors are he was going to take over right at the beginning of camp, and that Javonte Williams was on the outs, and I was like, I don't see that. Williams, I expected to be good because he's a year removed from his ACL injury, right? But Jaleel McLaughlin, the coaching staff loves him. He's the pass catching running back there. So if you're playing half PPR or full PPR, I think he's a great late round flyer, by the way, in a draft. He played 51% of the offensive snaps with the starters in the preseason week 2 game. He's fast. How fast is he? He was 14th in explosive run rate, 5th in missed tackles, force per attempt last season. His ADP is 152. He's a guy I'm taking late round flyers on often, by the way, myself.
I am too. What has been really encouraging, Mike, is have you seen that they're using him more inside the 10-yard line now?
Yes.
So one of the big concerns, this was an argument I got into with a couple of people early in the offseason when we were hearing this McLaughlin hype was, yeah, but he's not big enough. He's not big enough. He's not big enough. He's going to be a primarily pass catching back. He's not big enough. My argument was he averaged 5.3 yards, almost 5.4 yards per carry last season. He caught 31 of 36 targets. He had 76 carries. It's not like it was a small amount of work. This is a guy who can get things done. And if you put a healthy Javonte Williams into this offense and look at historically what Sean Payton has done with running backs, both of these guys can be fantasy relevant. And Jaleel McLaughlin at RB50 is going to, and I'm telling you this right now, Mike, he is going to finish higher than RB40. So you've already gotten a 10 slot discount on the guy drafting. I think he could finish higher than RB30.
What's Peyton's record with pass catching running backs? How good are pass catching running backs usually? They're usually pretty good, aren't they?
I mean, Alvin Kamara still hasn't had a 1,000-yard season rushing.
That's my point, right? When you look at those Saints running backs that Peyton had, he utilizes the pass catcher a lot, right? It's part of his scheme. That's part of why I like Bo Nix a little bit more than other people might as well, by the way, is because you get those dump offs, right? You get the back and the flat. I like Jaleel McLaughlin in PPR a lot because of this. Like, I think if you're playing PPR, he should not be on waivers anywhere. He should be drafted higher than his ADP.
Oh, he should absolutely be going higher than his ADP. And the next guy on our list, Mike, Khalil Herbert, running back, Chicago Bears. I think he should be going higher as well. DeAndre Swift, look, that didn't move the needle for me. When they signed him, I didn't care much. We've seen what DeAndre Swift is capable of, and he can't do anything inside the 10. Who can? Khalil Herbert.
Yes. And he had 4 games last year with double-digit scores. When he sees 43% of the snaps or more, he's averaged just under 78 yards and 14 touches a game. That's not even 50% of the snaps. So if he is getting half the workload, he's going to produce. Somebody had posted on Twitter or X or whatever we want to call it now that they thought they might be trying to trade him to a running back needy team. Even more reason to draft him, to be honest, with a late round flyer if you don't think he'll stay in Chicago. I don't know. I know I've never been a Swift guy. So I know there's a lot of DeAndre Swift people out there. I'm more of a Khalil Herbert guy. So I like him as a late round flyer. A lot of mouths to feed though in Chicago. So it'll be interesting to see how it plays out.
There are. So here's something I'm kind of banking on. And I don't like to say injury prone. It's not something I'm ever going to say about a player. But I will say that there are certain guys who seem to get hurt more often than others. And DeAndre Swift is one of those guys, right? And for whatever reason, whether it's his training, whether it's his running style, whatever the hell it is, the dude can't stay on the field. He can't stay healthy. So if you're going to bank on an RB2 in a system seeing more time than a normal RB2 is going to see, Khalil Herbert is that guy behind DeAndre Swift. Plus, you're talking about a DeAndre Swift who 4 seasons, the dude cannot find the end zone inside the 5-yard line.
No. And Herbert can. He may be one of the highest end handcuffs there are is Herbert. They trust him too, right? So I know they didn't trust him with a full workload last year. They were splitting that 3 ways, which was brutal. Because they ran the ball a lot. I think they'll still run the ball a lot. I'm hoping to see Herbert get a chunk of that at some point this season.
Well, and the great thing about it is even if they're running the ball a lot, Caleb Williams isn't that guy who's going to really snipe a lot of rushing opportunities or rushing yards from these guys. So now a running back who I think is going to snipe some work from a veteran, Ray Davis in Buffalo, the rookie. I really like this guy, Mike. This feels like, and I hate to make these kinds of comparisons because I'm not that next year's Puka Nacua or let's find next year's James Robinson or whatever. But this feels a lot like a Jamal Williams in Detroit situation to me, where you've got this guy in James Cook who works really well between the 20s, but we've seen it time and again. He's not that type of back who's going to power the ball inside the 10-yard line. He's not going to power those like 3rd and 1, 4th and inches type plays. And they want to get Josh Allen away from doing that. Ray Davis seems to be the guy that's going to get them away from doing that finally after what feels like a million tries.
If they go away from that, meaning if they decide, right, to not shorten Josh Allen's career by allowing him to run inside the 20 all the time, Ray Davis is a great pick. And I think that's why they drafted him as well. He gives them that body that they can do this with. And they haven't had anybody really like that since Josh has been the quarterback, right? Like he's a monster. And being a Patriots fan, watching him run over the Patriots, even when the Patriots were good when he first started playing, I love him. I love Josh Allen. My only thing I've said about him every year was, "Oh my God, please stop letting him run the ball so much. He's gonna get hurt." He hasn't yet, but you just can't keep doing that as a quarterback. So
you've
I'm
got to
hoping
imagine
they get away from that with Ray Davis. I think that's why they drafted him. I hope so.
I think that's why they drafted him too. I got an in-person up front, close and personal look at Ray Davis in Mobile at the Senior Bowl this year. And something he does really well is operate well at the line. He finds those gaps and he does it quickly. Nobody's Barry Sanders, but in a very slight way, it reminded me of the way that Barry Sanders was so patient behind the line. Davis waits a minute, finds his hole, and then he blasts through it. That's something this offense hasn't had. Ray Davis he could be a double-digit touchdown scorer this year just on the ground. It wouldn't surprise me if we got to that because this offense needs it. And let's be honest, if Sean McDermott doesn't cool it off and Josh Allen suffers some major injury, that's probably the end of his tenure in Buffalo. So if he wants to keep his job, man, get Ray Davis the ball.
I think they're going to. I think they're going to use Curtis Samuel a bit in the run game as well. It's going to be interesting to see what they do. I do think Allen will be running less, especially inside the 20, which will be better for the team.
No, massively better for the team. I feel like this is the thing that's held them back in years past, is not having that power rusher to get those extra yards, because teams can really game plan against Allen. And now you've got two guys who can do it. Maybe Buffalo makes it a little bit farther in the playoffs this year. Now, a team that's not going to make it very far in the playoffs, no matter how hard they try, Mike, the Carolina Panthers. Interesting running back situation there, because we've got the rookie Jonathan Brooks, who's coming off of a knee injury. So we don't know exactly when we're going to see him at 100%.
I like him a lot, by the way, but right when he may miss some time here, and Hubbard might be the starting running back for week 1. And drafting him as your running back 44, if he's the starting running back week 1, is huge value. I pretty much look at a draft as to get me through the first 3 or 4 weeks of the season. And then, you're hoping that some waiver moves or trades set you up. I chunk a season into three chunks of weeks. The first group, the second group, and then the third group, I'm literally just setting up a lineup for the playoffs, most likely to try to win in the playoffs, and I don't even care if I win.
Yeah.
Hubbard had 7 straight double-digit fantasy scores to end the year last season. Not sexy, not giving you 25 or 30-point scores. I expected him to do nothing because he had done nothing prior to this. So I wasn't super high on him and recommending him when people added him, but he has value. And if he's the starter and he's the main guy, which he was since he stole the position from Miles Sanders, who was another guy I thought was horrible, the guy can get you double-digit scores as a flex spot or your third running back on your team. That's pretty good, man, if you can do that every week.
Well, and I think it's interesting, the assumption that as soon as Jonathan Brooks is healthy, he's just going to take over the full workload and Chuba's trash. That's not going to be even remotely close to the case. As long as Chuba is serviceable, they're going to continue to give him a significant workload through the end of the season. It's what smart coaches do.
Well, yeah, you especially with somebody's coming off of an injury, right? You want him to get fully healthy. You don't want to see an Austin Eckler last year who just
Right.
Was never right.
Yeah.
I know he's a little older than Jonathan Brooks, but still,
But still, the knee injury is a knee injury is a knee injury, regardless of age. And yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where I don't know that Jonathan Brooks is going to be even 75% this season. And Carolina might not rush to get him on the field because, again, this is a team that isn't making the playoffs. So
that's pointless, right? Why ruin a potential commodity for what you're looking to do as you get better? They already have Deontay Johnson dinged up as well.
Yeah.
They made a lot of good moves, by the way, in the offseason overall. I like what they're doing. But
they did. Carolina is going to be an interesting team over the next couple of seasons. For redraft this season, not terribly interested, but
neither am I.
Dynasty-wise, there's some guys that I'm snapping up to see what happens. Now, a guy that I am snapping up to see what happens in redraft, he's on our list, Bucky Irving, currently RB 55 right now in drafts. Now, he's a little bit different than I feel like some of these other backs because Tampa Bay is really mostly a throw-first team, right? And Rachaad White's kind of established himself in that role.
Yeah.
But Bucky Irving could get enough work to where RB 55, he could finish 15 slots ahead of that in this Tampa Bay offense. This is a team that is going to be good. They are going to be competing for their division. I wouldn't be surprised if we're talking about them as one of the surprise NFC championship teams at the end of the season. So,
well, how many teams don't have a committee at running back? Not very many.
Almost none.
He may end up in a committee with White. And he can play. I like Bucky as well. Yep. And if you get return yardage, he was slotted to be the return guy there. So if you were drafting Scott Fishbowl, I had him very highly rated for say that. I like him too. I think he's not heavily drafted anywhere. He's only on like 7% of the rosters out there. Yeah. So another late round flyer that we may just be talking about 2 weeks into the season anyways.
Yeah, and again, if Rachaad White gets hurt, but Bucky Irving's backfield. Now, just kind of a follow-up question to the Bucky Irving talk here. Rachaad White's currently going as RB 14. Are you okay with that value for Rachaad White right now in drafts?
He earned that last year. I'm okay with it.
All right. Yeah, that's a fair answer. Well, let's move on to wide receivers, Mike.
I have 0 shares of them, but I'm okay with that.
I have a decent amount of shares, but it was more on a bet with Aaron Stewart from Player Profiler. So, it's how things work. So let's move on to wide receivers here, Mike. We're going to roll through these here. The first one we're going to talk about is Josh Palmer, Los Angeles Chargers. I really like talking about Josh Palmer. I think the dude's ultra talented. I just worry in this offense, is there going to be room for someone like Palmer to eat?
I don't see why not. Who's the number 1 wide receiver there?
Quentin Johnston? Exactly.
That's funny, right? McConkey, is McConkey dinged up right now? I think he is.
He's a little dinged up, but everything I've read is he'll be 100%. Well, as close to 100% as you can be by the time the season starts.
But he's a slot guy. He also didn't play every down in college, right? So Palmer was second on the team in receiving yards last season. He did not play every game. He only played 10. They didn't have anybody play every game, I think, at wide receiver last year. His ADP's 133, right? What's wide receiver 57? He's mostly going super late or undrafted everywhere. He actually averaged double-digit fantasy points last season. He averaged 11. 6 out of the 10 games, he scored double digits. He didn't have very many completely crap games either. He's also the only wide receiver with a relationship with Herbert on the team. So we know they're going to want to run the ball, but they're still passing the ball probably 50% of the time. Even if they're not good, I'm a fan sometimes of getting this late round top wide receiver on a team who turns into your wide receiver 3 on your fantasy team. Um, and there's a case for him to do that, I think.
Well, and with Palmer too, 2 years ago in 2022, he had 107 targets. He was the overall wide receiver 37. He played 16 games. And to your point, what's his competition? Lad McConkey, Darius Davis, Simi Fehoko. We've got Brendan Rice, DJ Chark, Quentin Johnston, and Cornelius Johnson.
They even had turnover at tight end, right? Hayden Hurst.
Yeah, they've got Hayden Hurst now.
Yeah.
So, yeah, this is a situation where I don't think it's crazy to say that Josh Palmer could be a wide receiver 3. And if you're getting him at wide receiver 57, that's a steal of a deal. Now, the one I do have questions about here, though, is Jacoby Myers. Though today, a little bit less of a question mark, knowing that Gardner Minshew is going to be the quarterback in Las Vegas. Wide receiver 55. Do you think Jacoby Myers can, in an offense that now does not have Hunter Renfrow, but has 2 first-round tight ends, can Jacoby Myers feast in this offense?
I think so. He had 21% target share last year. I know different quarterback scenario, and he came out smoking hot to start the season. But in 10 out of the 18 games, he had double-digit fantasy scores. He ended the season with 71 receptions, 807 yards, and 8 touchdowns. He's being drafted at the 132nd pick. 55th wide receiver you have there off the board, right? He's very PPR friendly. He gets a lot of catches. One of the things I always tend to say about him, though, is he has never seen a tackle that he wanted to break. So he catches the ball, but he doesn't go anywhere. There's no yards after the catch. So if you're playing PPR, I think you can take a flyer on him late. I think it'll return some value. If you're not playing PPR, I'm probably avoiding him, because even if he has the catches, I don't know. I don't know what to expect there other than some volume.
Well, I think that's a good point, Mike. Volume. He's going to get the volume. Look at their backfield. This team isn't going to be able to run the ball. They've got Zamir White, Alexander Madison, and I love Dylan Laube. I do. He's more of a pass catching type guy, right? He's not someone you're going to run out of the backfield and hand the ball off to on a draw or a counter play very often, unless you're just trying to change pace and do something different and catch the defense off guard. This is a team that's going to throw a lot. Jacoby Myers is wide receiver 2. I mean, outside of him and Devontae Adams, like I said, they've got Mike Mayer, they've got Brock Bauer, then it's Trey Tucker.
Yeah.
So if you just look at the depth chart, Jacoby Myers, as much as I don't love him, he finishes higher than wide receiver 40 this year. You're getting him at least a 15 position discount. So I think that's something that's worth. I wouldn't even say it's necessarily a risk. I think other people are just sour on a guy and not understanding situation as much as some people do.
They're soured because they don't trust the quarterbacks there. I play mostly PPR, so I'm kind of in on Jacoby Myers. I know he runs good routes and he has good hands. So if the 21% target share is still there, you want him, right?
Yep. 100%.
Where you're drafting him, if 3 weeks into the season that isn't happening, you're cutting him to make a waiver wire ad. So the risk is super low. It's mitigated here, and what you can get for that risk far outweighs not taking it. He's not rostered. He's rostered fairly heavily in ESPN and Sleeper, but in Yahoo he's only rostered 42%. So he's out there in a lot of places. People aren't drafting him unless they're taking him really, really late.
Yeah.
I'd do that.
If you're in a PPR league, Jacoby Myers is a guy who's going to vastly outperform his ADP. You can almost count on that. Now, Khalil Shakir, Buffalo Bills, someone that I think the majority of the analyst community, at least, has been pretty sweet on for the last couple of years. We like the skill set. We like the speed. We like the hands. However, he's been strapped behind Stephon Diggs, Dalton Kincaid, Dawson Knox, a host of other characters in this offense. Emmanuel Sanders there for a minute. Now, he's essentially the wide receiver 1 you can't really count Keon Coleman as a rookie as the wide receiver one. So for all intents and purposes, we're going to say it's Khalil Shakir. But he's going as wide receiver 50, Mike, in an offense that likes to throw the ball. One, is this a sign that we think Dalton Kincaid is going to probably take over the majority of targets in this offense? And two, even if that's the case, are we too low on Khalil Shakir?
Even if the answer to the first question is yes, this answer to the second question is yes, we're too low on him. Everyone is. So if you're taking a dart throw in the 12th round, you can take it on Khalil Shakir. His final 3 games last season, so week 18, 6 targets, 6 receptions, 105 yards. The first playoff games was 3 targets, 3 receptions, 31 yards and a TD. The second game, 9 targets, 7 receptions, 44 yards and a TD. Some games he's had where he's blown out some big yardage because he's quick. But if he's getting targeted like this, especially if he's getting targeted in the red zone, you want him. He's a guy I'm seeking out, either him or Samuel, if I can, in the 12th round, because somebody's going to pop as the number 1 wide receiver in the Bills, and it's going to be one of those 2 guys.
Mike, I love Curtis Samuel. I'm just having a hard time seeing him as a wide receiver 1 because he's such a kind of a gadget player at times. They use him, but again, Tyreek Hill, similar. So I suppose that's not a fair argument, is it?
Well, that's why I don't have him on this list, by the way. I love him too. And I have Shakir. Shakir was somebody I sent you as a name, and apparently you had the same guy. He's got that chemistry with Josh Allen, right?
Mm-hmm.
He's a slot guy. The Bills have proven to use a slot guy well in the past. They have the new offensive coordinator who knows Curtis Samuel, though. But that chemistry with Allen, I think, helps. I don't know. I honestly think Shakir is going to take off this year. I expect him to become the top wide receiver for that team. Coleman may later on as the season goes on, because he's such a big body, become like a super awesome red zone target. But at least to start the season, I think Shakir has the best chance of taking off.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. Now, we're going to move to a wide receiver core that I don't think anybody really knows what to make of it in Green Bay. You've got Romeo Doubs on this list, and I'm okay with that. Wide receiver 53. Last season, he was wide receiver 36, 96 targets in an offense that they're not going to throw the ball a whole ton, Mike. They got rid of Aaron Jones.
I think they are going to throw the ball a ton.
Or they are. I'm sorry, I said that when they're not going to run the ball.
My problem with Green Bay. So I like Doubs, but I like Green. I like Watson. I like Wicks. There's too many mouths to feed there. But where you can get him, again, if you're taking a late round flyer out there, he's a wide receiver who can produce. I think Love really proved himself to be a good quarterback, which surprised a lot of us, I think, last year. And this wide receiver group is very, very good. So I like Doubs probably better in best ball than I do redraft. But anyone gets hurt there, like anyone, and you're down to say 3 guys, all 3 of them will be good because Love spreads the ball around so well.
And Doubs had 8 touchdowns last year, so don't forget about that. Going into his 3rd year, I think we could see maybe a little bump in his even target share in this offense. I know people are excited about Jaden Reed. I am too. I think calling him a wide receiver 1 might be a little bit of a stretch in this offense. I appreciate the excitement. I don't think it's it. I don't know that there's a true wide receiver 1 in this offense, though, and that's
they're all going to be up and down. I think they're all going to be up and down. There's just too many mouths to feed. I mean, Wicks is probably the 4th guy, and he's very talented guy.
Yeah. Right. Now, the last guy on this list, I love this. Fun story. Doing the Kings Classic draft week and a half ago, sitting in between Rich Reber and Ian Hartitz. And we get to about the 13th round of the snake portion of the draft before we got to the auction. And Ian looks at me and he goes, "So we've reached the draft players for a funny team name portion of the draft." And he proceeds to draft Greg Dortch. We had a great laugh about it. Wide receiver 85, though, in an offense, Mike, that I feel like might throw the ball more than we're expecting. I know James Conner, he's been kind of a darling here going later on in drafts. We've got Trey Benson, who's the rookie. We've got Kyler Murray, who likes to move. But what if Dortch slots in as a solid wide receiver 2 in this offense behind Marvin Harrison Jr.,
This is a
wide
guy I
receiver
love.
85?
I'm emotionally attached to Dorch the Torch, right? I am. I
Sure.
used him so much in DFS and redraft when they've had injuries in the Cardinals wide receiver group. He has sticky, sticky, sticky hands. He
Yes.
literally catches everything thrown his way. Everything. You throw it anywhere near him, he catches it. Um, that can only help Kyler Murray, right? The primary wide receiver on the team is a rookie who should be incredible. And if anything, that probably helps Dortch. They also let other guys walk and move Dortch into
Yep.
the opposite side of the field. And it's probably because of his sticky hands. I mean, he just catches everything thrown his way. Um, One of my very best friends is literally the guy who taught me how to play fantasy. We play in 2 leagues together, and I guarantee you we will both have to reach to get this guy. I play in a league with Laquan Jones, and LQ is a big Dortch guy as well.
Huge Dortch
And
guy.
and I was drafting right next to him, so I was trying to snipe him, and I waited one round too long, and he got Dortch right before me. And I don't think he understands. I've been on Dortch for 2 seasons as a guy I
Well,
love, hoping
now
he
he
gets more
knows.
opportunity. Oh, unfortunately, he knows,
Now,
but
he-
he still
now,
got
now
it.
he knows. Now he knows. Well, we're going to shift positions and get everyone out of here, Mike. We're going to the tight end position. This is one of the grossest positions in fantasy football. We talk about this year in and year out, and it happens to be my favorite position to try and figure out and grade. And this list, you put all of the players I was going to put already. You came to the table with all but one of my guys. Let's start out with Jonnu Smith. He's now found a new home in Miami. A lot of talk of, Miami just doesn't support fantasy tight ends, but they've never had Jonnu Smith, Mike.
Well, he wasn't very good with the Patriots, so I don't know how he'll be with Miami, but it's a high-powered offense. It looks from what we're seeing in the preseason that they're going to use him in some end arounds and put him out wide here and there. John Smith is good when you throw the ball to him. I like him when people throw the ball to him. I've had him on many a fantasy team. I know he can produce. Uh, he was 17th in receiving yards per game for tight ends last year, 11th in yards per route run, 5th in missed tackles forced. So it's not like he's lost it, right? It's just what's the volume going to be like, and that would be my only concern with Miami as well. Is what's the volume going to be like? But again, look at where you drafted him. It's so
Right,
late. There's no risk here. If he pans
right.
out great, if he don't, you cut him. I think he's a great shot in the dark because of that. I know X has been talking about Jonnu Smith a lot lately as well, justifiably so. But I mean, you have to temper those expectations, right? Like at best, he's what, the fourth option on that team, maybe fifth,
Yes.
right?
But
So
but also you see you get a couple of injuries because you've got these speedy guys and they get hit hard enough at speed, they're going to go down for a couple of games.
yeah,
And this is an inexpensive way to buy into a very dynamic offense very late in a draft. The payoff
yeah.
might not be there, but you're getting him so late. It's a dart throw, right?
Well,
And
and
it's a dart
this,
throw that if it pays off at tight end, that can be fortune changing in fantasy.
yeah, well, all the guys I had on my list, by the way, were all guys that are dart throws, but if they pay off, it's great, right?
Yep.
Um, excuse me. Gesicki's the same way. Some people
Yeah.
are super high on him, some aren't. Mike Gesicki, he has Burrow, the best quarterback he's ever played with. Uh, He is definitely not a blocker. He is definitely a pass catching tight end, right? His ADP is really low. Uh, he is probably the third option in this passing attack. Uh, if Burrow's all right, Gesicki's probably going to be good.
Yeah. And I love, thank you for saying that, because he really is. He's the third receiving option in this
Yeah.
offense. In a pass happy offense, it's relying on Zach Moss and Chase Brown in the backfield. We might actually see Gesicki get that tight end one finish this year.
Yeah, Tyler Boyd's gone,
Tyler
right?
Boyd's
So,
gone. You've got Jamar Chase, you've got an unhappy T. Higgins, and you've got Mike Gesicki
yeah.
at tight end 25. Going a little earlier than him, and this one's always a fun one, and I put a question mark next to the tight end, but Taysom Hill in New Orleans, Mike, he's mostly designated as a tight end across platforms, and as much as we hate it, year in and year out, this dude finds a way to finish within the top 15 tight ends when he's designated at the position.
So when you say we, you mean the fantasy community,
Yes.
not me.
Not you.
I absolutely love it. And I love that everybody else hates it, because my theory on this stuff is I grew up someplace very cold. And you know what happens if you're sliding on ice in your car? You turn into the slide. Taysom Hill, you can hate that he's playing tight end when he was playing quarterback, or last year when he's really playing fullback, which he'll be doing again this year if the preseason holds true. That's awesome, right? Like, for me, that's awesome. Top 12 finished the past 2 seasons at tight end. They used him more as a fullback last year. He had 5 carries for 21 yards and a TD in the week 2, the second preseason game, which means he's probably playing fullback. They're really down on Miller, the second running back, and we know Kamara's more of a pass catcher and was useless in the red zone. Taysom Hill is well worth that late round flyer with that 157 average draft position. 15th round. Some leagues don't even have a 15th round.
Right. Well, and I have been screaming this all off season. I want almost nothing to do with this New Orleans offense as long as Dennis Allen is the head coach and Derek Carr is the quarterback. Taysom Hill and Alvin Kamara are the 2 exceptions to that. These are guys that I'm buying in at their ADP. They're slipping too far down. And while Taysom Hill, he's not going to be a producer for you every week, he's going to have those weeks where you're looking to find someone you've got to toss in. You need a flex guy. You can toss Taysom Hill in and you're going to get 5 points. You could get 30, though. You could get 40. Just depends on the week.
So he is one of those guys where if you don't get one of the top tight ends, taking a flyer on Hill, like Hill and Gesicki at the end of your draft, say, is a brilliant move. Because you have you just have the likelihood of anyone you're drafting could get you the 3-point floor that Taysom Hill can get you, but his ceiling is so much higher than any of these late round tight end prospects, like so much higher. Where if you punted the position and you're solid everywhere else, I tend to build steady rosters with one boom bust guy. I'm okay if that's my tight end. And you know, that 20-point, 30-point game from him, just 7 double-digit scores in the last 11 games last season. So he's more consistent than people like to say, by the way. I'm a huge Taysom Hill supporter. So
he is. And we're seeing him, and we're seeing a trend of him being just used more consistently in this role. So I believe that continues this year. Now, a tight end that I'm interested more so in streaming than drafting, but also I can see why you'd want to draft him, Isaiah Likely in Baltimore. Mike, I was real high going into last season, knowing that we were looking at a Todd Monken offense in Baltimore, thought they were going to throw the ball a little bit more, maybe thought we'd see Likely get involved as more of a slot receiver. We didn't see that as much, but when Mark Andrews got hurt, he was a really viable option. Tight end 18, to me, that says people think he's going to get a little bit more usage this year, even with Andrews in. Is that kind of what you're thinking as well here?
That's what I'm thinking. What I'm hearing is he's going to be playing a lot more, which is good. He's good. They have some, when you have good plays, you got to get them on the field somehow, even if it's he's the backup tight end. Um, and if anything happens to Andrews, which seems to happen every season, likely is definitely a guy you want to be playing. The biggest problem I think with that offense for me is they just spread the ball around a lot. So people are always looking for one of the wide receivers to be this big breakout wide receiver one there, but Lamar Jackson spreads the ball around to everyone. Like he's really good at doing that, and you're not going to get the production you would with somebody that's getting say 15 to 20% target share. So
Right.
unless something happens to Andrews likely isn't going to see a high target share like that.
But again, at tight end 18, if you're an Andrews manager, grab Likely late. And if you're looking for a flyer, grab Likely late.
Yeah.
And this last guy, this is kind of the same thing for me. Greg Dulcich, tight end in Denver, currently going as tight end 31. Some of this I really truly believe is a symptom of people being down on the Denver offense. I get it. I've been mostly down on Dulcich as well. However, seeing this offense progress, this is a time where I'm okay taking Greg Dulcich in the last round of a draft.
Well, yeah, and Noah Fant you could throw out there with something like that as well,
Yep,
right?
same.
These guys, there's not a lot of competition for targets on the team, and again, those are the guys you want to take late like that, right? If they take off, it's a great pick, like a
Yep,
great
exactly.
pick, league-winning pick.
No, 100%. Dulcich could be that guy. If this Denver offense is markedly better than we thought, I think Dulcich finishes in the top 15 at the
Was it 2
position.
seasons ago, the whole fantasy community was going nuts for him on the waiver wire one?
Yeah, but how much of that was his hair, Mike?
Well, I don't know. I would go nuts for his hair. I don't
I
have
would too. I don't either. That's why I wear a hat. I just started shaving it off. All right, guys. I want to thank everyone for tuning in to the first of many shows with Mike and myself. I want to remind you to please like and subscribe here. It will help us continue to bring you this content all off season long. Mike, it's been a pleasure. And I just want to let everyone know here what we have got coming up here over the next week. We have tomorrow our AMA on our fantasy football. That is going to be starting at 2 p.m. Eastern. Hop on to Reddit, ask us any questions you want. We will get back to you as quickly and as accurately as we possibly can. Then tomorrow night, the Nate and Herms show, the debut. We are going to be a little bit different format. We're going to be talking NFL news, not a whole lot of fantasy impact talk on that one. But then Thursday, the Optimus Fantasy Show. Friday, the DFS Show. That's going to be with me and Mike again. You're going to see our pretty faces one more time this week. And then on Friday, the Fantasy Mailbag Show. One more reminder, guys. You can win a copy of College Football 25 Deluxe. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Register proswithjoes.com. Send us screenshots. Either DM us on Twitter or team@optimusfantasy.com. Win a copy of College Football 25. Mike, I hear it's the coolest game out there and all the kids are playing it. So
I'll have to ask my son.
Yeah. All right, guys.
No.
The link for Pros with Joes we do have in the show notes below. So make sure you check that out. Also, check out our link tree. It's got links to all of our social media. So you can find us on Twitter, Twitch, Instagram, Blue Sky, Threads, Facebook. I'm sure there are others I'm not thinking of. And this will be a podcast tonight. So make sure you find us on your favorite podcast network. Follow, subscribe, give us a 5-star rating. We would greatly appreciate it. All right, Mike. That was fun, man.
Thanks,
It's good to have you, man. It's good to be here. Guys, we're going to get out of here. I will see you tomorrow with the Nate and Herm show. Mike and I will see you on Friday with the DFS. Until then, happy drafting, folks.